El Nino? And what does it have to do with our weather? El Nino is a powerful weather pattern.
This is John May, General Manager of Petrale Roofing, up on another customer's roof doing a free 21-point inspection. If you'd like us to take a look at your roof, give us a call today, 719-375-8773. We'd be happy to take a look and see the condition of your roof. Petrale, we're a Diamond TAMCO installer, which means we can offer a industry-leading 25-year workmanship warranty to give you peace of mind in the storm. Call Petrale Roofing, 719-375-8773. Schedule your free inspection today.
All right, crew, good morning. Let's get after it here on Mornings with Meister, because we have a busy about 48 to 60 hours of weather, some higher impact type stuff across the area. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining me, whether you are on peaks2plainsweather.com, whether you are in the Peaks to Plains weather app, whether you're on social media, or whether you're on Roku. Thanks for joining us here this morning. I am going to get right into it, but I want to let you know that I am going to take some questions today, if you have some, because we have some higher impact weather. We'll do that a little bit later on, but I have that available to you anytime I am live, whether we're doing snow coverage, severe thunderstorm coverage, if there's damaging wind across the area and you'd like to come on, ask questions or report, you can use these links that I've got here. They are the same. I encourage you to put them in your phone as a contact so that we can cover the weather. This is Neighbors Helping Neighbors. This is our weather together. Okay, let's jump in. I loved when I got this yesterday. Lucas Herbert from A Basin was out catching people enjoying the 8 inches of snow that they had on Tuesday and Tuesday night. That was great to see them get that. They needed that in a big way. Now, did it help our snowpack? No, it didn't. It's only still running about 20% of average and obviously is still historically low, but there is more on the way, and that is good news. It was beautiful yesterday. I hope you had a chance to get outside. We had mid-70s from Pueblo out across the plains. Springs, we had mid-60s. Centennial, we were in the mid-60s. It got to 60 in Alamosa. Things changing up, though, today. Yesterday was a really good day for the Schwackheim fire on the Colorado-New Mexico line, about 2 miles to the north of the New Mexico state line, near the Lake Dorothy State Wildlife Area. At Lake Dorothy, it's kind of off to the west of there, burning back up to the northwest, up toward Little Fisher's Peak Mesa. And it only grew 8 acres yesterday. That's some really good news because it is going to be more challenging today into tomorrow. It'll take a while today, but eventually we'll get some gusts up around 40 miles per hour out of the southwest over the fire. That's stronger than what we had yesterday. Then we get that wind shift tomorrow with the cold front coming in, and that could cause some issues as well. But they have the south end of that thing sort of flanked up pretty good. And so that may have the fire blowing back on itself. We'll see. But I think the colder temps coming in will be good news for that fire and help it lay down. That's all associated with that system approaching us from the northwest here. And you can see that thing bringing some snow to Idaho, to Montana, to Yellowstone National Park and the Grand Tetons. That will be moving into our area tomorrow. Ahead of it today, it's a high fire danger day. Red flag warnings go up in the late morning and last until the late part of the evening. For a lot of us in southern Colorado, it's until 11 o'clock tonight. That's later than it usually is. Part of the reason for that is we'll keep the wind up a little bit this evening as the cold front gets a little bit closer. Now, it is going to be nice this morning. There's not many of us getting some wind right now, and it's going to take a while for the wind to kind of get going today for a lot of areas. And so with temperatures that are about 5 to 10 degrees warmer than this time yesterday, it's really, really nice outside. In fact, we're pushing 50 in the Springs this morning. In contrast, Lyman's down to 28. Lyman, Lamar, there are some thermometers out there that are kind of sitting in low spots that tend to be a little bit colder than everybody else oftentimes. But speaking of cold, look at Alamosa. It's 19 this morning. And that's because we have some very dry air overhead. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on today into tomorrow. Then we're going to have a conversation about our, all this hype about the super El Nino kind of drives me nuts. So we're going to conversation with the local National Weather Service office guru of the seasonal forecaster. His name's Kyle. He's great. Then we'll take a break. We'll do the extended part of the forecast into next week, and then we'll end with Throwback Thursday. So that's kind of the breakdown here. This is going to be a little bit of a longer one today because there is lots to talk about, and I think that Super El Nino conversation is really, really important. So I wanted to do that with Kyle, and he's a really, really good dude. So let's jump into the forecast. Overall today, because it's going to take a while for the wind to kind of get going, Banjo's going with an 8 on his barometer. And even after the wind gets going, it's going to be a better feel today than what's coming tomorrow with that cold front. So we'll be warmer than yesterday. Springs will get into the mid-70s. Pueblo will get to around 80. Lots of 80s out over the plains. I think the Mountain Valley areas get warmer than yesterday. So it's the, proverbial warm before the storm for sure. But watch what happens with the wind here. Early on, it's the gap flow areas, the low spots in the Rockies that tend to see some wind through the morning. So this is Levita Pass down to Walsenburg. This is coming out of the canyon in Fremont County toward Canyon City. And usually we get some breezes in this situation that make it out toward Pueblo as well. Into the afternoon, you see the wind sort of on the larger scale picking up, and that's when it'll get a little bit gusty as well. The strongest gust will be over the eastern slopes of the mountains where you see those brighter oranges. And some of these areas might get some gusts to 60. That doesn't mean everybody is going to get it, but we'll all notice some wind in the afternoon. Not across the plains, probably between 25 and 35. For a lot of us, some of us may get a couple gusts, at least occasionally, up to around 40. But watch this here during the evening. The gusts stay up a while through about 9 o'clock. before they pull back a little bit. That's why that red flag warning lasts for quite a while, because the humidity will stay low as well. And then here comes the change for tomorrow. I know your eyes caught that in the top right-hand corner of the screen. That's the cold front. I think it's into the Pikes Peak region and probably making some pretty good progress toward the Arkansas River when the sun comes up tomorrow morning. So if you look at northeastern Colorado, the lows are colder than what we'll have in southern Colorado, kind of as that front's coming in or ahead of it. We'll be mixing up the atmosphere and temperatures will be pretty comfortable. Mountain Valley areas that are colder this morning, that 19 in Alamosa, will be warmer than that tomorrow as we get the day underway. High temperatures tomorrow are a little bit of a crapshoot because a lot of it for areas that are getting the front coming in as the day starts, like those are going to be our high temps. South of there, we'll get a couple hours to warm up. And for some of us, our high temps might actually be around midnight ahead of the cold front. So they're not as high tomorrow. Certainly northern areas, colder for the highs than southern areas, but it's almost a day where the highs don't really matter because the temperatures will kind of be dropping through the day. And the wind that stays up behind the cold front help you notice the colder air tomorrow. You can see by 9 o'clock that thing's pushing toward New Mexico. I think it's a little bit faster than the model shows. Now, over the mountains, we'll get southwest wind for a while and switch that around out of the west here later on in the day as the upper level system that I just showed you up across the northern Rockies is kind of swinging across the area. But a raw, brisk day tomorrow east of the mountains, still a windy day over the mountain areas, and things will be changing up there. And even into the late part of the day, you see some of us over the plains are dealing with some wind gusts. Now, let's talk about the snow. Over the mountains, it's going to pick up during the morning. Over the San Juans, we'll get some snow showers, but it's to the north of there, to the north of Highway 50, where that snow is sort of more persistent through the course of the morning into the afternoon before it starts to break up. Also, I think we'll see valley floors get some snow where we didn't last time. And you see also snow picking up over Denver, the Pikes Peak region, and the Palmer Divide through the morning into the afternoon. So things will be changing up pretty quick through the first part of the day and certainly into the lunch hour. Then the back part of the day here, notice this band that's oriented from southwest to northeast. That's under the jet, and that's under the heart of the upper level system that'll be moving across the area. Here's what I want you to know for once the snow kind of gets going tomorrow. There is potential for some bursts that'll have big wet flakes that reduce visibility and also might accumulate pretty quick on the grass and trees. Now, once it falls, the ground is warm, it's going to tend to melt. So don't get hung up on how much snow are we getting with this system. Tomorrow's going to be a shock regardless. Just know with some bursts, there might be some visibility issues that cause, if you're driving around, you might be like, oh my gosh. Notice that we don't get the showers too far or even maybe toward Highway 50. We might get it toward Highway 50. It's not going to last long, but into tomorrow night, we get it out of here really, really quick. My concern tomorrow night, though, is that as the temperatures keep dropping, especially for places that might have had an inch, maybe a couple of inches on the grass, is that the roads that are wet will freeze because the sky clears out and the wind pulls back. So, over the mountains, especially the northern half of the state, another 3 to 6 inches of snow. I do think we'll get some over the Palmer Divide into the Pikes Peak region. Some places maybe a couple of inches at some point on the grass and the trees and the decks, but then it might melt after it sticks around. So don't get hung up on these numbers. Just know there will be some snow around tomorrow, but maybe a bigger concern other than the visibility is the freezing of some of those roads, even over Teller County into tomorrow night and Saturday morning as we get into the teens and 20s. We do get a hard freeze to start off our weekend here. And then as we head into Saturday, it'll be kind of a cool day behind that system. I mean, we'll warm up. We'll have some breezes here as we kind of bring in some warmer air, 50s and 60s with sunshine. So it shouldn't feel too bad by Saturday afternoon once we can leave the chill behind. I think another freeze on the way Saturday night into Sunday morning. Most of us will be a little bit warmer than where we are Saturday morning. Big Mountain Valleys might be an exception as we're down into the teens again. And I think there will be parts of the Palmer Divide that are maybe in the low 20s again. Out across the far eastern plains will be in the upper 20s to around 30. And then Sunday is a warmer day for sure. Okay, so that's kind of the breakdown of the first part of our, forecast here as we move into the next couple of days. So if anybody has any questions, there is a chance to jump in here. And again, we'll do that. I'll give you some time here to get your question ready, figure out how to log in. Because right now I want to talk to Kyle Mozley from the National Weather Service in Pueblo about the Super El Nino. I hate that term that could develop. I wanted to take the opportunity and do a little bit of a deep dive. I have this segment I call Investigate Together, and I want to do that here because you are kind of the seasonal forecasting guru in the office, and there is a lot of talk out there about how there is a transition happening across the globe. First, I want to start off with, as we come out of winter here, sort of historically how this winter looks.
Yeah, so this winter has been exceptionally dry. I like to compare it to some of the past ones that we've had, like 56, 57, and 81, 82. Those are both exceptionally dry forecast periods that we had historically.
Yep.
Where snowpack was exceptionally low. And we had transitions like we're expecting this year, like we're going from La Nina into El Nino conditions. And so there's some similarities between those couple of seasons and what's happening right now.
You mentioned it already, a transition from La Nina to El Nino. There are some other oscillations and circulations across the globe in the Earth atmosphere system that we look at as well. And you're looking at one of those kind of happening now to maybe open the door for some of these changes.
Yeah, really, I look at many different oscillations that occur globally. Probably the most important one for the transition from La Nina to El Nino is the Mad-Julian oscillation, the MJO. Currently, we have an event that's taking off across getting into the Western Pacific and strengthening as we move forward in time. What this does is it sends a westward wind burst of trade winds across the Pacific. So it reverses the northeasterlies, turns them westerly. And as that happens, it helps push the warm water that's generally pooled over the Western Pacific into the Central Pacific and helps speed up that transition.
And so as we get that here over the next couple of weeks, like, is this just sort of a short-term thing, do you think, or is it kind of open the door for a longer-term change?
I think it'll be opening the door for a longer-term change. Over the past, since December, really, we've had multiple MJO events that have occurred, but they've been stopped across the maritime continent, Indonesia, Thailand, in that area. There's been a lot of Rossby wave activity, which counteracts the MJO progression. And we've got this MJO push into the Pacific, and it's going to continue moving eastward through the next couple of weeks, 3 to 4 weeks or so. And as that happens, that should help moisture across Colorado. You wouldn't think that something that's happening, thousands of miles away has much influence here in Colorado. But
Right.
As that moves into the Pacific, that opens the door for moisture to move into the West Coast and into the mountain areas here in Colorado over the next probably 2 to 3 weeks.
Let's talk about this developing El Nino, or what we think is going to happen with it, because it has had a lot of, hype. I mean, there's the Super El Nino, which is just sort of a scientific, it's sort of like, hey, we think there's potential perhaps for a high-end type of El Nino. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so we're currently in a neutral phase. You look at the Nino 3.4 region, and we're around a minus 0.2, minus 0.25 as far as temperature anomaly. As we move forward in time, that MJO that's currently happening is going to help warm those waters fairly quickly across the Pacific. We're looking at a transition in the June, July, August or so timeframe. So here pretty quickly. So that's a pretty rapid transition. And we'll have to see how warm we get. This MJO will certainly help boost those temperatures across the Pacific. The probabilities that an El Nino is going to occur are fairly high, 80+% as we go through the summer months and into the fall. And as we, transition over, we'll have to see just how strong this event becomes. I know there has been a lot of talk of there being a very strong event, or a super El Nino, as they call it.
Right.
Will we get there? That's the big question. How quickly we get there will also determine, how we move forward in time as well. My current projections are around a plus 1.8 to plus 2.2, somewhere in that area, which is on the stronger to low end, very strong event.
Right.
So I'm not going.
I hear you like tempering it a little bit versus some of the headlines that you see. Is part of that because when we're kind of in spring here, coming out of winter, some of that skill of El Nino forecasting isn't as high as some of the other times of the year?
Yeah, we're currently in what we call the spring barrier, which it's the time frame where models have a hard time with that transition moving ahead in time. As we move out of the spring months and into the summer months, we can start to gain more confidence when, so we'll get that confidence, whether we'll see a stronger event or a less stronger event as we move forward in time. But that spring area right now is, where we're at. The fact that models are projecting an El Nino event is, that's encouraging.
Right.
But strength right now is we're kind of limited on where we may end up. So once we get through the next couple of months, we should have a better handle on where we're headed.
Let's talk about what an El Nino sort of historically can do for Colorado and parts of the western U.S., because there is a higher probability or higher linkage of some impacts in the winter months than there tends to be if there's an El Nino in other times of the year.
Yeah. So one of the things we have to worry about is strength, of course. The strength can impact the storm track. If we have too strong of an event, the storm track ends up a little too far south, and
right.
we may not end up with as much precip. If it's not as a strong, a weaker event or a moderate event, the storm track may be too far north, and we may be limited on precip in that case. If it's kind of where we're heading, the storm track will probably be on the more southern side, and we'll just have to see where we're at. That can all have implications on how much precipitation we receive in the winter months.
Well, tell me if you agree with this. What I've noticed over the years is there tends to be, because of where the positioning of that jet stream is, particularly kind of on the front end of winter season and the back end, at least there's potential in the neighborhood for storms to be, kind of moving through at least the southern part, the right part of the Rockies, for potential for a bigger type storm, a blizzard type storm, versus in a La Nina when the jet tends to be up to the north. Like, that's not even a possibility. Would you agree with that? That's just been my kind of observation over the years.
Yeah, in some of the research I've done, it actually indicates that September and November, that time frame can the El Nino has an influence on our precipitation, and it leads to higher precipitation amounts, especially over the mountains. Now, as we transition into the December to January, February months, the El Nino influence goes away, and then when we get into the spring months, there can be some influence as well. But those months leading up into the winter, the fall, into the early winter months, El Nino does have an influence on our precipitation, especially over the mountains.
Yeah. Okay. So to wrap it up, what should we take from kind of where we are now, what the data says, and what realistic expectations should be here over the next few months, like things to watch? I mean, people are just, the winter was so, let's be honest, crappy, Kyle, that, I think a normal winter would be pretty exciting, right?
Yes. So as we move forward in time, I'm pretty certain that we'll transition into El Nino. That's something that we have high confidence in. Strength is still yet to be determined, but it's something that we'll need to watch as well. If it's too, like I said, too strong, the storm track will be south. If it's on the moderate to weaker side, the storm track will be a little further north. And that'll all have impacts on how our precipitation ends up for the winter months. As we go through the fall and into the early winter, I think that'll be our biggest potential to see some heavier snow or heavier precipitation events across the state. During the core winter months, December to like January and February, we may see a fall off in precipitation. And then as we move into the spring of 2027, the potential is there for a little bit better precipitation than we saw over the core months.
Well, it's funny how, we have to watch how far north or south an individual storm is, but we have to watch how far north or south the storm track is too with an El Nino. Kyle, I appreciate your insight. This has been a really good discussion. One of the things I like about what we're doing here at Peaks to Plains Weather is taking some time to get into some of the detail. I appreciate you sharing your expertise with us all here, and thanks for what you and the crew at the Weather Service do. I'm grateful.
All right, not a problem. Anytime.
For over 20 years, my family, like so many of you, has proudly been part of Broncos country.
Every season, we feel the energy, passion, and commitment that defines this team.
And now we are honored to be the official injury law firm partner of the Denver Broncos.
Ramos Law. What makes us different makes us better.
Barbecue brisket, smoked in that authentic Oklahoma style. Pulled pork sandwiches, and don't forget the sauce. It doesn't get any better than this. Order box lunches for the whole crew. Feed them safely with award-winning catering from Bird Dog Barbecue. Oklahoma style, perfected in Colorado.
At Phil Long Ford Motor City, we've been around for 80 years. That's like 560 in dog years. Basically, we're the top dogs of Colorado. And thanks to our deals, selection, and service, we've earned some pretty loyal customers. And our GM Mark, he's the most loyal guy I know. Even after I chewed up his shoe, it was delicious.
Great trucks, amazing deals, and belly rubs for dogs. Come see why Colorado drives Phil Long Ford Motor City. Hey guys, where's my shoe?
Emergencies are unpredictable, but you don't have to be unprepared. Peak Alerts sends you targeted emergency alerts in real time for the places that matter to you most, so you know what's happening and what to do next. Know first, act fast. That's the power of Peak Alerts.
Alrighty, our extended forecast. If you live in Teller County, El Paso County, I'd remind you, take the opportunity here to sign up for Peak Alerts. If there is a fire in the area and there are evacuations that are ordered, that is a very easy way for the authorities to let you know. Today's a high fire danger day. Had a fire on Highway 115 yesterday. Thankfully, that was put out quick. And, fire a concern today ahead of the ice that comes in here with this system that moves through on Friday. So that is going to be a shock to the system. This one bringing much colder air than the last few that have gone through. And so that changes things up. This is the energy in the atmosphere. It swings through quick, which is kind of unfortunate because it might be a little bit more interesting kind of if it hung around for a little bit. But I want to take you into next week. By the time we hit Sunday, we warm up in a noticeable way. And then we've got another system on the way. It's kind of nice to at least see systems coming through and to have weather to forecast. And a month ago, we were just sitting under that ridge and breaking records all over the place and, decimating our snowpack. So at least the weather's been a little bit more active here in April. What's interesting about this system and what models are having a hard time with is they're kind of breaking it up as it moves into the middle part of the country, or at least the middle part of the Rockies into next week. And so by Wednesday here, you can see that, that looks okay. And maybe we'll get a day here with some showers, at least over the mountains, or perhaps a thunderstorm or two. We'll have to watch where the low level moisture is out across the plains, because when you have falling pressure out here underneath these big storm systems, you do tend to start to draw on low level moisture. But then it kind of gets ripped apart a little bit. Like here's a lobe of energy, here's some off to the southwest, and then we kind of stay frothy here, like in this big dip into the late part of next week. Point being is there's stuff to figure out. There's something to watch. But do I have a lot of confidence with how once we get to the back half of next week, things are going to play out? I don't. Sometimes we do, like we see these big systems and things are kind of moving along and stacked up. And so we can say, hey, Thursday's a day to watch, or whatever the case might be, but not a lot of confidence back here. So just know that at some point we might turn cooler and unsettled. And so check back in with me here because we've got to kind of get through the weekend, I think, before we figure out the details of that thing. But tomorrow is a way different day. Our high temperature in Colorado Springs, the official one's probably before you wake up. Woodland Park will only get into the mid-30s here. We'll catch some snow as we move through the back part of the day and probably start to see that snow early in the morning. Again, a couple nights of some hard freezes here. Early next week looks okay before we start to worry about what happens with that system for the late part of next week. Colorado Springs, I think as the sun's coming up, we're maybe in the 40s as the front is kind of mixing up the atmosphere. Our official high temp might be in the 50s while you're sleeping, but then really, really cold tomorrow night. Not as cold, I think, up against the hills Saturday night into Sunday, or maybe we drop really quick Saturday night and then start to warm up prior to the sun coming up on Monday. And we might even get to around 80 Tuesday and Wednesday ahead of that system for the late part of next week. And then again, a trend of cooler, kind of unsettled is how I would describe it now, because just model run to run, and between the models, they're not figuring that thing out. Pueblo, could you catch a shower tomorrow? In the late part of the afternoon, you might. Crowley County, you might. It's just more likely when you get into the Pikes Peak region, up across the Palmer Divide and on the slopes of Pikes Peak and over the mountains. But really cold tomorrow night. It will feel raw tomorrow afternoon behind that front for sure. A couple nice days there, maybe into the upper 80s actually, before we turn cooler at some point next week and we figure out where that upper level system goes. So there are questions to work on. But like I said, today, even though we've got the wind coming in later on, we get a while this morning here. I think for the most part, it's going to be okay. Banjo's barometer, he's excited. He's going with an 8 today, partly because of how it's going to feel tomorrow being sort of raw out there. So yes. All right. Mike Parker says, looks like I will be draining the sprinkler system back today. I'm doing that as well. It's going to be cold enough that I would recommend doing that if you fired up your sprinkler system. Hopefully yours is a kind of an easy one to do. Mine only takes me about 10 minutes. Certainly better than having to call a plumber out and replace that if you're not capable of doing it yourself. Julie says, thanks for the info. Make it a great day. Hattie says, you always do a good job of educating us besides bringing us the forecast. Hattie, thank you. I appreciate that. I do want to do Throwback Thursday here today. I had this vision of like finding video and photos of these interesting weather things like over the last week to kind of share things. It's hard to find that stuff on the internet, but I do want to do that today, and so let's talk about it a little bit. I went back kind of from April 10th through the 16th where we are today. There were a couple big blizzards. April can bring those for sure. We had one it was on the 12th in 2020. Had some decent snow across kind of the northern parts of the area, up into the Denver area. 1933, there was a good storm that was on the way. That was for the 12th. Take you into the 13th in 1996. There was one that moved across the area, and that's kind of the sort of theme here. When I look back in time, is some of these big April storms. Let me take you to the 14th. One that I found was that 1996 one was still happening. There was also one in the late 90s in 1999 that was kind of on the north end of the area as well. Into the 15th, tax day, an interesting weather day across the state of Colorado with some bigger storms. One in 2016 moved across the area with up to 20 inches of snow across the region. DIA had almost 900 flight cancellations in 2016. And in 2020, there was another one that moved across the area. That one kind of hit the northern part of the state a little bit more. I mean, wouldn't this be more interesting if I had some videos and stuff to show you? I think it would, but, you know. And so that, again, I mean, in April, that's kind of what you expect, like what is going to be sort of a impactful weather system is either some wind or some storms. Every now and then you get a storm that will produce some thunderstorms across parts of the area on the front end of what might be producing blizzard conditions on the back end. In fact, I remember one time, I don't remember what the month was, but there was one time where there was blizzard warnings in Lincoln County, and just to the southeast of there on the front end of the system, on a cold front, there was a tornado warning that were like 35 miles apart or something like that. So, okay, Carol's asking a question here. She says, what do you think tomorrow evening's roads will look like 6 to 9 p.m.? Icy or just wet? Well, I think that might be the time frame where maybe wet roads are turning icy, especially the higher you are in elevation. So like more likely up on the spine, like Monument Hill, versus the north side of the Springs, or going up Ute Pass into Teller County, like 7,000 feet, maybe more likely at that time frame to be seeing it compared to 6,000 feet. But that's kind of my concern, is that with the wind kind of helping to pull the heat away from the roads, some of those wet roads might become icy. And then certainly later into the evening and early Saturday morning, there'll be potential for some of those roads to ice up. But the other thing that happens with wind is that it can dry the road surface out. So there are lots of questions with this one, just given the time of year and how things are kind of working out. So that was a long one today, crew. Told you it would be. We did a half hour there. I will have updates through the day on the Peaks to Plains weather app, peakstoplainsweather.com. Social media will be pushing lots of stuff, but a shock to the system at the minimum tomorrow. For some of us, perhaps some impacts to some snow, especially in the Pikes Peak region and up across the Palmer Divide. Hope you have a good day. Thanks for watching Peaks to Plains Weather. Thursday, there are a couple things that we are watching here at Peaks to Plains Weather. One of them is the Schwackheim fire just to the east of I-25 to the north of New Mexico, kind of on the back side of the mesa that makes